I decided to visit my husband's mistress in the hospital, but when I opened the door to her room, I found my own daughter lying in that bed. My name is Sarah, I'm 43 years old, and I live in Portland, Oregon. For 20 years, I thought I had built the perfect life with my husband Mark, a successful corporate lawyer who worked downtown in one of those glass towers that reflect the clouds. We had everything that looked right from the outside, a beautiful house in the suburbs with a garden full of roses that I tended every weekend, 2 cars parked in the driveway, and enough money to take vacations twice a year. But perfection, I've learned, is just a carefully constructed illusion that crumbles the moment you look too closely at the cracks. It was a rainy Tuesday morning in October when everything started to unravel. The kind of morning where the Portland drizzle turns into a steady downpour and the sky hangs low and gray over the city, like a wet blanket. I was in the kitchen making coffee, watching the raindrops race down the window, when Mark's phone buzzed on the counter. He had left it there while he showered upstairs, and normally I would never look, but something made me glance at the screen. The message preview showed a woman's name I didn't recognize, Rebecca, and the words that followed made my heart stop. I miss you so much. Last night was incredible. When can I see you again? My hands started shaking so badly that I had to set down my coffee mug before I dropped it. 20 years of marriage, and in that single moment, everything I thought I knew about my life felt like it was built on sand. I heard the shower turn off upstairs, and panic flooded through me. Should I confront him right now? Should I pretend I never saw it? My mind was racing, trying to make sense of what I had just read, trying to find some innocent explanation that could make those words mean something different than what they so obviously meant. When Mark came downstairs, his hair still damp, wearing that gray suit I had picked out for him last Christmas, I couldn't look at him. I busied myself with a coffee maker, pouring him a cup with hands that wouldn't stop trembling. He kissed my cheek like he did every morning, grabbed his briefcase, and headed for the door. "Love you," he called out, the same 2 words he had said thousands of times before, words that now felt hollow and meaningless. I watched him drive away through the rain-streaked window, and I realized I had no idea who the man I had spent half my life with actually was. The next few days were torture. I went through the motions of my daily routine, grocery shopping at the Safeway on Morrison Street, attending my book club meeting, watering my roses even though the rain was doing that job for me, but inside I was falling apart. Every time Mark's phone buzzed, I felt sick. Every time he said he had to work late, I wondered if he was with her. I started checking his phone whenever I could, deleting my search history, learning his passcode by watching his fingers, becoming someone I never thought I would be. A spy in my own marriage. What I found over the next week destroyed me piece by piece. Text messages that went back months, talking about hotels I had never heard of, restaurants in neighborhoods across town, moments stolen between his court appearances and my volunteer work at the community center. Rebecca. The name burned itself into my brain. I looked her up online, found her LinkedIn profile. She was 29 years old, worked as a paralegal at a firm 2 blocks from Mark's office, had long dark hair and a smile that looked genuinely warm in her profile picture. She was young, ambitious, and apparently in love with my husband. If you're listening to this story and wondering what happened next, I want you to do me a favor. Click that subscribe button right now because this journey gets even more complicated and you won't want to miss what happens. We're working toward 1,000 subscribers, and every single one of you who joins us means the world to me. This community we're building together is about real stories, real pain, and real survival. So go ahead, hit that red subscribe button, and let's continue this together. The breaking point came on a Thursday evening. Mark told me he had a late meeting with a client, some big case that needed his attention, the usual excuse. But I had been tracking his location through the family sharing app on our phones, something we had set up years ago for safety, and I watched as his little blued moved not to his office, but to an apartment building in the Pearl District. I sat in our living room, staring at that on my screen for 2 hours, feeling something inside me harden and crack at the same time. When he finally came home at 11, smelling of perfume that wasn't mine, I was waiting for him in the dark. I didn't yell. I didn't cry. I just turned on the lamp and asked him one simple question. "Who is Rebecca?" The color drained from his face, so fast I thought he might faint. He tried to deny it at first, stumbling over his words, saying she was just a colleague, just someone from work. But I pulled out my phone and showed him the screenshots I had taken, the messages I had saved, the evidence I had been collecting like a prosecutor building a case. He collapsed into the armchair across from me and put his head in his hands. What came next was a confession that lasted until 3 a.m. He told me everything, or at least I hoped it was everything. The affair had started 6 months ago at a work happy hour. She had made him feel young again, he said, made him feel exciting and desired in ways he hadn't felt in years. He talked about how our marriage had become routine, how we had stopped really seeing each other, how the spark had faded into comfortable indifference. Every word was a knife, but I sat there and listened to all of it, needing to understand how we had ended up here, in this nightmare version of our life. I told him to leave that night, packed a bag for him while he sat there looking broken and small, and watched him drive away into the darkness. The house felt enormous and empty without him, every room echoing with memories that now felt contaminated. I couldn't sleep in our bed, so I spent that night on the couch, staring at the ceiling, trying to figure out what I was supposed to do next. File for divorce? Try to work it out? Confront this Rebecca woman who had helped destroy my marriage? For 2 weeks, I existed in a fog of grief and anger. My best friend Linda came over almost every day, bringing food I couldn't eat and sitting with me while I cried. She kept telling me that Mark was the one who had broken our vows, that I needed to remember this wasn't my fault, but I couldn't stop picking apart every moment of our marriage, looking for the signs I had missed, the warnings I had ignored. Had I been too focused on my own life? Had I stopped making him feel loved? The questions ate at me from the inside. Mark was staying at a hotel downtown, and we communicated only through text messages about practical things, bills that needed to be paid, appointments that needed to be kept. He kept apologizing, kept saying he wanted to fix things, that he would end it with Rebecca immediately. But I didn't know if I could ever trust him again. How do you rebuild trust after it has been shattered so completely? How do you look at someone and not see their betrayal every single time? Then everything changed again. It was a Sunday afternoon, gray and cold like most November days in Portland, when my phone rang with a number I didn't recognize. I almost didn't answer, but something made me pick up. The voice on the other end was professional and calm, a nurse from Providence Hospital. There had been an accident, she said. A young woman named Rebecca had been brought in after a serious car crash on the Burnside Bridge. She had been carrying a purse with my husband's business card in it, and he was listed as her emergency contact, but they couldn't reach him. They were calling me because our home number was also in her phone. Was I able to come to the hospital? My first instinct was to hang up. Why should I care what happened to the woman who had been sleeping with my husband? But the nurse's voice was urgent, explaining that Rebecca was in critical condition, that she needed surgery, that there was no one else they could find. Despite everything, despite the anger and the pain, something in me couldn't just ignore this. Maybe it was curiosity. Maybe it was some deeply buried sense of human decency. Or maybe I just needed to see her, to make this person who had haunted my thoughts for weeks into something real and tangible. I drove to the hospital in a daze, my hands gripping the steering wheel so tight my knuckles went white. The windshield wipers beat a steady rhythm against the rain, and I kept asking myself what I was doing, why I was going to help the woman who had helped ruin my life. The hospital parking garage was dimly lit and smelled like exhaust fumes, and I sat in my car for 10 minutes before I could make myself go inside. This is the moment that will change everything, I thought, though I had no idea how true that would be. The emergency room was chaos, people crying and shouting, nurses rushing past with clipboards, the sharp smell of antiseptic mixing with the bitter coffee from the vending machines. I found the nurse who had called me, a kind-looking woman in her 50s with tired eyes who seemed grateful I had come. She led me through a maze of corridors, explaining that Rebecca had been in surgery for 3 hours, that the crash had been bad, that they had managed to stabilize her, but she wasn't out of danger yet. She was in recovery now, and they were moving her to a private room. If this story is pulling you in, if you're feeling what I felt in those moments of confusion and pain, then please subscribe to this channel. We're building something special here, a community where real stories matter, where we share the messy, complicated truth of our lives. Hit that subscribe button and help us reach 1,000 subscribers. Your support means everything, and I promise this story is worth staying for. The nurse stopped outside a room on the 4th floor and handed me the clipboard she had been carrying. Before you go in, I need you to sign as her medical proxy since you're the only contact we have, she said. I stared at the form, at the line where I was supposed to write my name, and felt a wild urge to laugh at the absurdity of it all. I was about to become legally responsible for the medical care of my husband's mistress. But I signed it anyway because what else was I going to do? Leave her here alone with no one? The nurse opened the door and gestured for me to go in. The room was dim, lit only by the monitors beeping softly beside the bed and the gray daylight filtering through the window. I could see the shape of someone lying there, bandages and tubes and wires connecting her to machines. I stepped inside, my heart pounding, preparing myself to finally see this woman who had caused so much destruction in my life. But when I got close enough to see her face, when I really looked at her, my entire world exploded. It wasn't Rebecca lying in that hospital bed. It was my daughter. It was Emma. I couldn't breathe. I couldn't think. I stood there frozen, staring at my 22-year-old daughter's bruised and battered face, her long dark hair matted with dried blood, her arm in a cast, bandages wrapped around her head. This couldn't be real. This had to be some kind of nightmare. Emma was supposed to be at college in Seattle, finishing her senior year at the University of Washington, studying environmental science, preparing for her finals. She wasn't supposed to be here. She wasn't supposed to be Rebecca. My legs gave out, and I grabbed the edge of the bed to keep from falling. The machines beeped steadily, measuring her heartbeat, tracking her oxygen levels, and I felt like I was drowning in questions that made no sense. Why was my daughter in Portland when she was supposed to be in Seattle? Why did she have Mark's business card? Why was she listed in his phone as Rebecca? And then the horrible, impossible question that I didn't want to ask but couldn't stop from forming in my mind. Had Mark been having an affair with our own daughter? No. No, that couldn't be it. Mark wasn't capable of something like that. There had to be another explanation. There had to be something I was missing. But the evidence was right here in front of me. The text messages I had read, the romantic words, the secret meetings, they had all been between Mark and someone named Rebecca. And now Rebecca was Emma. My daughter was Rebecca. I pulled a chair close to the bed and took her hand, the one that wasn't in a cast, and held it gently. Her skin was cold and pale, and I could see the dark circles under her eyes, even through the bruises. "Emma," I whispered, but she didn't respond. The nurse had said she was still unconscious from the surgery, that it might be hours before she woke up. So I sat there in that dim hospital room, holding my daughter's hand, and tried to piece together what had happened to my family. My phone buzzed in my purse. It was Mark, finally calling me back after a dozen missed calls from the hospital. "Sarah, what's going on?" "The hospital keeps calling me," he said, his voice tense with worry. I looked at Emma lying in the bed, and something in me hardened. "You need to get to Providence Hospital right now," I said, my voice flat and cold. "4th floor, room 412. We need to talk." I hung up before he could ask any more questions. 20 minutes later, Mark burst through the door, his tie loose and his hair disheveled like he had been running. He saw me first, and then his eyes moved to the bed, and I watched his face go through the same transformation mine had. Confusion, then disbelief, then horror. "Emma," he gasped, rushing to the other side of the bed. "What happened? Why is she here?" He looked at me across our daughter's unconscious body, and I saw genuine shock in his eyes. Whatever was going on, he hadn't known she was the one in this bed. "You tell me," I said quietly, keeping my voice steady even though I wanted to scream. "The hospital called me because they found your business card in her purse. She had you listed as her emergency contact under the name Rebecca. So you tell me, Mark, what the hell is going on? Why is our daughter using a fake name? Why does she have your business card? And why have you been meeting with her in secret for the past 6 months?" Mark's face went from white to green, and for a second I thought he might throw up. He sank into a chair on his side of the bed and put his head in his hands, the same gesture he had made the night I confronted him about the affair. "Oh God," he whispered. "Oh God, Sarah. This isn't what you think. I swear to you, this isn't what you think." "Then what is it?" I demanded, my voice rising despite my efforts to stay calm. "Because from where I'm sitting, it looks like you've been having an affair with our daughter, and I need you to explain to me right now how that's not what's happening." He looked up at me with tears streaming down his face, and I had never seen him look so broken. "She came to me 6 months ago," he said, his voice cracking. "She showed up at my office out of nowhere, and she told me something that I never wanted you to find out. Something that I've been keeping from you for 23 years. The room felt like it was spinning. 23 years. That was before Emma was even born. "What are you talking about?" I asked, but I wasn't sure I wanted to hear the answer. Mark took a shaky breath and looked at Emma lying between us. "Sarah, Emma isn't my biological daughter. She's not your biological daughter either. We adopted her, but it wasn't through the agency we told you about. It was private through a lawyer friend of mine, and there were irregularities in the paperwork. The birth mother never properly terminated her parental rights. Before you hear what happened next, I need you to do something for me. I need you to subscribe to this channel, because the next part of this story is going to answer so many questions and raise even more. We're almost at 1,000 subscribers, and each one of you matters to this community. Click that subscribe button now, and let's keep going together through this incredible, painful, complicated story." I couldn't process what he was saying. Emma was adopted? We had never told her that. We had decided, when she was just a baby, that we would raise her as our biological child, that we would never tell her the truth because we wanted her to feel completely secure and loved. And now Mark was saying there were problems with the adoption? That her birth mother still had legal rights? 6 months ago, Emma somehow found out she was adopted. Mark continued, wiping his eyes with the back of his hand. "I don't know how. Maybe she found old documents. Maybe someone told her, but she found out. And she was angry, Sarah. She was so angry that we had lied to her all her life. She confronted me at my office because she didn't want to upset you, and she wanted answers about her birth parents." "So you've been meeting with her in secret?" I asked, trying to understand. "All those text messages, all those meetings, you were talking to Emma about her adoption?" He nodded miserably. "She made me promise not to tell you until she was ready. She was trying to process everything, trying to figure out who she was. She started using the name Rebecca because that was her birth name. Her birth mother named her Rebecca before we adopted her and changed it to Emma. She was exploring that identity, trying to connect with the person she might have been." My mind was reeling. All this time, I thought Mark was having an affair, but he was actually meeting with our daughter, helping her through an identity crisis that I knew nothing about. "Why didn't you tell me?" I asked, and I could hear the hurt in my own voice. "Why did you keep this from me?" "Because Emma asked me to," he said simply. "She wasn't ready to face you with it yet. She said she needed time, that she needed to understand herself first before she could have that conversation with you. And I was trying to respect her wishes, but also trying to help her through it. All those text messages you saw, they were about her emotions, her struggles with feeling like she didn't know who she really was." I looked at Emma lying there so still and broken, and my heart ached for everything she must have been going through. All those weeks when I thought she was happily studying in Seattle, she had actually been here in Portland, wrestling with an identity crisis that had been triggered by our lie. A lie we had told to protect her, but that had ended up causing exactly the kind of pain we had hoped to avoid. "What about her birth mother?" I asked quietly. "Did Emma try to find her?" Mark nodded slowly. "That's what she was doing when she crashed. She had finally tracked down her birth mother's address, and she was driving there to meet her for the first time. It was raining, and I guess she was nervous, distracted. According to the police report, she ran a red light on the Burnside Bridge and got hit by a truck. The pieces were starting to come together, forming a picture that was completely different from what I had imagined, but somehow just as devastating. My daughter had been carrying this enormous secret, dealing with this existential crisis, and she had felt like she couldn't come to me with it. What kind of mother did that make me? What had I done to make her feel like she couldn't trust me with the truth? I'm sorry, Mark said, and when I looked at him, I could see that he meant it. I'm sorry I kept this from you. I was trying to do what Emma wanted, but I should have told you. We should have handled this together instead of letting her go through it alone. I wanted to be angry at him. Part of me still was angry, because even though there hadn't been an affair, he had still been lying to me, still meeting our daughter in secret, still keeping enormous truths from me. But another part of me understood. He had been caught between his daughter's wishes and his wife's right to know, and he had made a choice that seemed right at the time, even if it had ended up causing more problems. Emma stirred slightly in the bed, making a small sound in her throat. We both leaned forward, watching her face for signs that she was waking up. Her eyelids fluttered, but didn't open. The nurse had said it would take time for the anesthesia to wear off completely, that we should be patient. But patience had never been one of my strengths, and right now I needed my daughter to wake up, so I could tell her that I loved her, that I didn't care about birth certificates or adoption papers or any of it, that she was mine and I was hers and nothing could change that. Tell me about her birth mother, I said quietly, still watching Emma's face. Who is she? Why didn't she terminate her rights properly? Mark shifted in his chair, uncomfortable with the topic. Her name is Diana Crawford. She was 19 when she had Emma, working as a waitress, no family support. She wanted to give the baby up for adoption, but she was scared, confused. The lawyer I worked with back then, he cut corners. He got her to sign some preliminary paperwork, but never followed through with the full legal process. I didn't know about the problems until years later, and by then Emma was ours, and I just buried the information, hoped it would never come up. Does Diana know about Emma? I asked. Does she know she's been looking for her? He shook his head. I don't think so. Emma was planning to show up at her house that day unannounced. She didn't have a phone number or any way to contact her, just an address she found through some online research. She wanted to see her birth mother face to face, to ask her questions about why she gave her up, about her medical history, about who she might have siblings or other relatives. I tried to imagine what that must have been like for Emma, driving through the rain to meet the woman who had given birth to her, not knowing what she would find or how she would be received. No wonder she had been distracted enough to run that red light. The emotional weight of that moment must have been crushing. Your support keeps me going through this difficult story, and if you're still with me, I want you to subscribe right now. Click that button and join our community. Help us reach 1,000 subscribers and be part of this journey. Every subscription tells me that these real, raw stories matter to you, and that means more than you know. Over the next 2 days, I barely left Emma's side. Mark went back and forth between the hospital and work, handling the practicalities like insurance and medical bills, but I stayed in that room, sleeping in the chair beside her bed, eating terrible hospital cafeteria food, waiting for her to wake up. The doctor said her injuries were serious, but not life-threatening. She had a broken arm, 3 cracked ribs, a concussion, and some internal bruising, but she would recover fully with time and rest. On the 3rd day, Emma finally opened her eyes. It was early morning, just after sunrise, and I was dozing in the chair when I heard her make a sound. My eyes flew open, and I saw her looking around the room, confused and disoriented. "Mom," she whispered, her voice hoarse and weak. I was beside her in an instant, taking her hand and pressing it to my cheek. "I'm here, baby. I'm right here. You're okay, you're going to be okay." Tears were streaming down my face, and I didn't even try to stop them. She was alive. She was awake. Everything else could be dealt with later. "What happened?" she asked, trying to sit up and then wincing from the pain in her ribs. I gently pushed her back down onto the pillows. "You were in a car accident," I told her. "On the Burnside Bridge. Do you remember?" Her eyes filled with tears, and she nodded slowly. "I was going to meet her. I was going to meet Diana." She looked at me with such pain and confusion in her eyes. "You know, don't you? You know everything." I brushed her hair back from her forehead, careful to avoid the bandages. "I know you found out you were adopted. I know you've been struggling with that. And I know I should have told you myself a long time ago, instead of letting you find out some other way. I'm so sorry, Emma. I'm sorry we lied to you." She started crying in earnest then, her whole body shaking with sobs, and I climbed carefully onto the bed beside her and held her as gently as I could, mindful of her injuries. I felt like my whole life was a lie, she choked out between sobs. I didn't know who I was anymore. I didn't know if you were really my mom, or if I was supposed to go find my real mom, or what I was supposed to do. I am your real mom, I told her firmly, holding her face in my hands, so she had to look at me. I'm the one who walked the floor with you when you were colicky. I'm the one who taught you to ride a bike and helped you with your homework and held you when your first boyfriend broke your heart. Biology doesn't make a mother, Emma. Love does. And I have loved you every single day of your life. She clung to me and I cried with her, and we stayed like that for a long time, just holding each other and letting out all the pain and confusion and fear that had been building up for months. When she finally calmed down enough to talk, she told me everything. How she had found the adoption papers in a box in our attic when she came home for spring break. How she had confronted Mark at his office because she was too angry to face me. How she had started using the name Rebecca, her birth name, because she wanted to understand that part of herself. How she had spent months trying to find Diana, searching through public records and online databases, until she finally found an address. I just wanted to know where I came from, she said quietly. I wanted to see her face and know if I looked like her. I wanted to ask her why she gave me up, if she ever thought about me, if she regretted it. I wasn't trying to replace you, Mom. I just needed to know. I understand, I told her, and I meant it. If I had been in your position, I would have wanted to know too. You have every right to ask those questions and to meet your birth mother, if that's what you need. I just wish you had felt like you could come to me with it instead of going through it alone. She wiped her eyes with her good hand. I was scared you would think I didn't love you anymore. I was scared you would feel like I was betraying you by wanting to find her. Dad kept saying you would understand, but I couldn't bring myself to have that conversation. Your dad knew about this? I asked, even though Mark had already told me. I wanted to hear it from Emma's perspective. She nodded. I made him promise not to tell you. He wanted to, but I begged him not to. So he was helping me look for Diana, and he was trying to help me figure out what I was feeling. All those times you thought he was working late or meeting with clients, he was actually with me, talking through all of this stuff. A wave of relief washed over me, mixed with guilt for having suspected Mark of something so horrible. He had been trying to help our daughter through the biggest crisis of her young life, and I had thought he was cheating on me. I owe your father an apology, I said quietly. I found some of his text messages to you, but I didn't know they were to you. I thought he was having an affair with someone named Rebecca. Emma's eyes widened. Oh no. Mom, I'm so sorry. I never meant for you to get hurt by all this. That's exactly what I was trying to avoid. It's not your fault, I assured her. We should have been honest with you from the beginning. Your dad and I made that decision when you were a baby, and we thought we were doing the right thing, but clearly we weren't. You deserve to know the truth about where you came from. If you're finding meaning in this story, if Emma's struggle is touching something in your own life, then please subscribe to this channel. We're building a community where these difficult, real conversations can happen, where we don't shy away from the complicated truth of family and identity and love. Hit that subscribe button and help us reach 1,000 subscribers. I promise you won't regret it. Mark arrived at the hospital an hour later and was overjoyed to find Emma awake. He hugged her carefully, crying almost as hard as I had, and apologized over and over for not handling things better. The three of us talked for hours that day, clearing the air of all the secrets and lies that had poisoned our relationships. Emma told us more about her search for Diana, about the late nights spent scrolling through public records, about the mix of excitement and terror she felt when she finally found an address. Do you still want to meet her? I asked gently, when the conversation had settled into a more comfortable rhythm. Diana, I mean. Do you still want to find her? Emma looked uncertain. I don't know anymore. Part of me does, but part of me is scared. What if she doesn't want to know me? What if seeing me just reminds her of a mistake she tried to forget? And after everything that's happened, all the pain I've caused you and Dad, maybe it's better to just leave it alone. You didn't cause us pain, Mark interjected firmly. We caused you pain by not being honest with you. And if you want to meet Diana, then we'll help you do that. We'll do it together as a family and we'll deal with whatever comes from it. I nodded in agreement. Your father's right. We should have offered to help you with this from the beginning instead of making you feel like you had to sneak around. If you want to find Diana and meet her, then that's what we'll do. And if you decide you don't want to, that's okay too. This is your journey, Emma, and we're here to support you no matter what you choose. She thought about it for a long moment, staring out the hospital window at the gray Portland sky. I think I need to meet her, she finally said. Even if it's scary, even if it doesn't go well, I need to know. I need to ask my questions and hear her answers. Otherwise, I think I'll always wonder and always feel like there's this missing piece of myself that I can't quite reach. So that's what we did. Once Emma was released from the hospital 2 weeks later, after her broken bones had been set and her concussion had cleared and she was stable enough to go home, we started the process of finding Diana Crawford and reaching out to her properly. Mark contacted the lawyer who had handled the adoption, a retired man in his 70s who felt terrible about the corners he had cut all those years ago. He helped us find Diana's current address and phone number and helped us draft a letter explaining who we were and why we wanted to make contact. The waiting was agonizing. We sent the letter through certified mail so we would know when Diana received it, and then we waited for her to respond. Days passed, then a week, then 2 weeks, and I started to think she wasn't going to answer. Maybe she had moved on completely from that chapter of her life. Maybe she didn't want to be reminded of the baby she had given up 22 years ago. Maybe our letter had just caused her pain, and she wanted nothing to do with us. But then, 3 weeks after we sent the letter, Diana called. Mark answered the phone, and I watched his face change as he realized who it was. He put it on speaker so Emma and I could hear too, and we all gathered around the kitchen table, hearts pounding, as we heard Diana's voice for the first time. I got your letter, she said, and her voice was shaking. I've read it probably 50 times. I can't believe you found me. I can't believe Emma wants to meet me. Emma leaned toward the phone, her voice trembling. I do want to meet you. I have so many questions, and I just want to see you and know where I came from. There was a long pause, and then Diana started crying. I've thought about you every single day since I gave you up, she said through her tears. Every birthday, every Christmas, I wondered if you were happy, if you were healthy, if you were loved. I was so young and so scared, and I thought I was doing the right thing by giving you to a family who could take care of you better than I could. But I've regretted it every day of my life. We all sat there crying, this strange family connected by love and loss and complicated history. Diana agreed to meet us, and we set up a time 2 weeks later at a coffee shop in downtown Portland. Emma was nervous but determined, and Mark and I promised we would be there with her, supporting her no matter what happened. The day of the meeting, Emma changed her outfit 3 times before we left the house. She wanted to look nice, but not like she was trying too hard. She wanted to seem confident, but not cold. She was terrified that Diana would take one look at her and regret agreeing to the meeting. I told her that was impossible, that any mother would be proud to know her, but I understood her fear. This was a meeting 22 years in the making, and the stakes felt impossibly high. We arrived at the coffee shop early and got a table in the corner. Emma sat facing the door, so she would see Diana when she came in, and Mark and I sat on either side of her, providing moral support. At exactly 2 o'clock, the door opened, and a woman walked in. She was in her early 40s, with dark hair like Emma's and the same green eyes. She looked around nervously until her gaze landed on our table, and then she froze. Emma stood up slowly, and they just stared at each other for a long moment. Then Diana crossed the room in 3 quick steps and pulled Emma into a hug, both of them crying. Mark and I stood there watching, our own eyes wet, as our daughter met her birth mother for the first time in 22 years. It was beautiful and painful and complicated, everything an important moment should be. We talked for 3 hours that day. Diana told us about her life, about being 19 and pregnant and terrified, about the father who had abandoned her when he found out about the baby, about her parents who had kicked her out for getting pregnant. She told us about the agony of giving Emma up, about signing the papers with tears streaming down her face, about wondering every day if she had made the right choice. She told us about her life since then, about going back to school, about becoming a teacher, about getting married and having 2 more children who didn't know they had an older half-sister. Emma asked her questions, some of them easy, and some of them hard. Why did you give me up? Did you ever try to find me? Do you wish you had kept me? Diana answered all of them honestly, even when the answers were painful. Yes, she had thought about trying to find Emma, but she was afraid of disrupting her life. Yes, there were times she regretted giving her up, but she also knew she had been in no position to raise a child at 19. Yes, she loved Emma, had always loved her, even though they had never met. Before we go any further, I need you to do something for me. Subscribe to this channel right now. We're so close to 1,000 subscribers, and your support means we can keep bringing these real, honest stories to people who need them. Click that red subscribe button and become part of this community. This story isn't over yet, and you'll want to hear how it all comes together. By the end of that first meeting, we had exchanged phone numbers and made plans to see each other again. Emma wanted to take things slowly, to build a relationship with Diana without rushing or forcing anything. Diana understood and agreed, saying she was just grateful to have the chance to know her daughter at all. As we left the coffee shop that day, Emma turned to me and Mark and said something that made my heart swell. Thank you for being my parents. Thank you for raising me and loving me and supporting me through this. Diana gave me life, but you gave me everything else. Over the next few months, Emma and Diana built a careful, tentative relationship. They met for coffee every few weeks, sometimes with Mark and me there, and sometimes just the two of them. Diana introduced Emma to her half-siblings, a boy of 16 and a girl of 14, who were shocked but excited to discover they had an older sister. Emma started spending time with them, building relationships with these children who shared her DNA but not her history. It was strange and wonderful and sometimes awkward, but it was real, and that was what mattered. As for Mark and me, we had our own healing to do. The months of secrecy and suspicion had damaged our marriage in ways that were hard to repair. Even though there had never been an affair, the lying had created a wound that needed time and attention to heal. We started going to couples counseling, working through our communication problems and the ways we had grown apart over the years. It was hard work, facing the reality that our marriage had become routine and disconnected, but we were both committed to fixing it. One evening about 6 months after Emma's accident, we were all having dinner together at our house when Emma brought up something that had been on her mind. I've been thinking about my name, she said, setting down her fork. I know you named me Emma when you adopted me, and I've been Emma my whole life. But I was wondering if it would be okay with you if I started using Rebecca as my middle name. Not to replace who I am, but to honor where I came from. I looked at Mark, and we both smiled. Emma Rebecca, I said, trying it out. I think that's beautiful. It's exactly right, actually. You get to be both people, both parts of your story. She smiled, relief washing over her face. That's what I was hoping you would say. I'm not choosing between you and Diana, or between Emma and Rebecca. I'm choosing to be all of it, to embrace my whole story instead of trying to hide part of it. That night, after dinner was over and Emma had gone back to her apartment near campus, Mark and I sat on the back porch watching the sun set over our garden. The roses I had planted years ago were blooming again, pink and white and yellow, their fragrance sweet in the evening air. We almost lost everything, I said quietly, reaching for his hand. We almost lost each other, and we almost lost her. He squeezed my hand and pulled me close. But we didn't. We found our way back. It wasn't easy and it wasn't pretty, but we're still here, still a family, maybe even stronger than we were before. I thought about that night 6 months ago when I had opened the door to that hospital room expecting to find my husband's mistress, and instead found my daughter. I thought about all the pain and confusion and fear that had followed, but also about the healing and honesty and growth. Sometimes the worst moments of our lives crack us open and let the light in, forcing us to face truths we had been avoiding and to have conversations we should have had years ago. Emma graduated from college that spring with her degree in environmental science. Diana was there at the ceremony, sitting a few rows behind us, and afterward we all took pictures together, this blended family that had been created through love and loss and second chances. Emma looked radiant in her cap and gown, standing between her two mothers, and I felt nothing but gratitude that we had found our way to this moment. The story could end there, with everyone finding their happy resolution, but life is never quite that simple. A few months after graduation, Emma came to us with news that turned everything upside down again. She had been offered an incredible job opportunity in Portland, working for an environmental nonprofit that focused on urban sustainability. It was her dream job, the kind of opportunity that young graduates rarely get, but there was a complication. The job required her to work closely with Diana, who had recently joined the organization's board of directors. "I want to take the job," Emma told us over dinner at our favorite Thai restaurant downtown. "It's everything I've been working toward, and it would mean staying in Portland instead of having to move away for work. But I'm worried about how it will affect our relationship if we're working together. What if it's too much? What if we end up getting sick of each other?" Mark and I exchanged glances across the table. This was Emma's decision to make, but we could offer our perspective. "You and Diana have built something good over the past year," I said carefully. "You've been honest with each other and respectful of boundaries. If you want this job, and if she's okay with working together, then I think you should go for it. You can't pass up your dream opportunity because you're afraid of what might happen." Diana, when Emma talked to her about it, felt the same way. She encouraged Emma to take the job, promising that they would maintain their professional boundaries and not let their personal relationship interfere with their work. So Emma accepted the position and started working at the nonprofit, and to everyone's relief, it went well. They were able to separate their mother-daughter relationship from their professional collaboration, and both aspects of their connection seemed to strengthen as a result. As I watched Emma thrive in her new career, working alongside her birth mother on projects that mattered to her deeply, I realized that sometimes the most beautiful families are the ones we don't plan for. Mark and I had tried to create a perfect family through secrets and lies, but what we ended up with, through honesty and hard work and forgiveness, was something much more real and much more valuable. Our family now included Diana and her children, this extended network of people who loved Emma and supported her and wanted the best for her. If this story has touched you, if you've seen yourself in any part of this journey, then I want you to subscribe to this channel right now. We're building something important here, a space where real stories about real families can be told without judgment or pretense. Click that subscribe button and help us reach our goal of 1,000 subscribers. Your support makes these stories possible. The real turning point in my own healing came almost a year after Emma's accident, when Diana called me one afternoon and asked if we could meet for coffee, just the two of us. I was nervous about it, unsure what she wanted to talk about, but I agreed. We met at a small cafe in the Pearl District, not far from where Mark's office used to be, and sat across from each other with our lattes, two women connected by a daughter we both loved. "I wanted to thank you," Diana said, her hands wrapped around her cup like she needed its warmth. "I wanted to thank you for raising Emma to be such an incredible person. I see the way she moves through the world, with confidence and kindness and intelligence, and I know that's because of you and Mark. You gave her everything I couldn't give her when I was 19 and terrified, and I will be grateful to you for the rest of my life." I felt tears spring to my eyes, unexpected and hot. "Thank you for saying that. And thank you for trusting us with her, even though you didn't know us, even though the adoption wasn't handled properly. You made an impossible choice because you loved her, and I want you to know that we loved her too, from the very first moment we held her." We talked for 2 hours that day, Diana and I, and in that conversation, I found something I hadn't expected. A friend. Someone who understood the complicated love of motherhood, the fear and the pride and the constant worry that you're not doing enough or doing it right. We were very different people from very different backgrounds, but we had this enormous thing in common, and it created a bond between us that I came to cherish. Over the next year, Diana and I built our own relationship, separate from our relationships with Emma. We met for coffee every few weeks, talked about our lives and our struggles, supported each other through difficult moments. When her marriage hit a rough patch, I was there to listen. When Mark and I were struggling with some issues in our counseling, she offered perspective without judgment. We became friends, real friends, and that friendship enriched all of our lives in ways I never could have predicted. Emma noticed the change in me during this time, the way I had softened and become more open. One day she asked me about it, and I tried to explain. I think I spent so many years being afraid, I told her. Afraid that I wasn't a good enough mother, afraid that you would find out you were adopted and stop loving me, afraid that Mark was pulling away and I couldn't stop it. All that fear made me rigid and controlling, even though I didn't realize it at the time. But going through everything we went through, almost losing you in that accident, facing the truth about your adoption, watching you build a relationship with Diana, it forced me to let go of that fear. And once I did, I found that life was so much richer and more beautiful than I had ever imagined. She hugged me tight, this daughter of mine who is also Diana's daughter, and whispered, "I love you, Mom. I love you so much." And in that moment, I knew that everything we had been through, all the pain and confusion and fear, had been worth it to get to this place of honesty and connection and deep, abiding love. Mark and I renewed our vows on our 25th wedding anniversary, a small ceremony in our backyard with just our closest family and friends. Emma stood beside me as my maid of honor, and Diana was there in the audience, crying happy tears. It felt like a new beginning, a chance to commit to each other again with all the lessons we had learned about communication and trust and vulnerability. The marriage we were building now was stronger than the one we had before because it was built on truth instead of illusion. Looking back now, almost 2 years after that rainy day when I opened a hospital room door expecting to find my husband's mistress and instead found my daughter, I can see how every piece of the story was necessary. If I hadn't found those text messages on Mark's phone, I might never have confronted him. If Emma hadn't been in that accident, she might have met Diana alone, and we might have lost the chance to go through it together as a family. If Diana hadn't been so brave and generous in welcoming Emma into her life, we might have been stuck in a bitter triangle of competing claims and jealousy. But instead, we found something better than what we had before. We found honesty and openness, and the kind of love that doesn't demand perfection but embraces the messy, complicated reality of being human. Emma has 2 mothers now, and instead of that being a source of conflict or pain, it has become a source of richness and depth in her life. She gets to know where she came from biologically while also knowing who raised her and shaped her into the person she is. She gets to embrace both parts of her identity without having to choose between them. As for Mark and me, we have rebuilt our marriage into something more authentic and more connected than it was before. We talk now, really talk about our feelings and our fears and our needs instead of just going through the motions of our daily routine. We go on dates again, rediscovering each other like we did when we first fell in love all those years ago. We've learned that marriage isn't about maintaining a perfect facade, but about showing up for each other, especially in the difficult moments when everything feels like it's falling apart. Diana has become a permanent part of our lives now, showing up at family dinners and holiday celebrations, welcomed and loved by all of us. Her younger children, Emma's half-siblings, have formed close bonds with Emma, looking up to her as the big sister they never knew they had. When Emma brings home the person she's dating, a wonderful person named Sam who works in renewable energy, we all gather together to embarrass her with stories from her childhood, Diana included. It's chaotic and noisy and absolutely perfect. Before I finish this story, I need to ask you one more time to subscribe to this channel. We're so close to reaching 1,000 subscribers, and I know we can get there together. Your subscription tells me that these real, honest stories matter to you, that you value authenticity over perfection, and that you believe in the power of truth and forgiveness. So please click that subscribe button right now and join our community. I promise you'll be glad you did. I've learned so much through this experience about what it means to be a mother, about what it means to be a wife, about what it means to be honest even when honesty is terrifying. I've learned that sometimes the things we fear most, the secrets we think will destroy us if they come to light, are actually the keys to deeper connection and greater love. I've learned that family is not defined by biology or paperwork, but by the choice to show up for each other day after day, through the good times and the devastating ones. If I could go back and talk to myself on that rainy morning when I first saw those text messages on Mark's phone, I would tell her that everything is going to be okay. More than okay, actually. I would tell her that she's about to go on a journey that will break her heart and then put it back together in a better way. I would tell her that her daughter is brave and strong and going through something incredibly difficult, and that the best thing she can do is love her through it without judgment or fear. I would tell her that her marriage can survive this, that it can even become stronger if she's willing to do the hard work of honest communication and forgiveness. But I can't go back. None of us can. All we can do is move forward with the wisdom we've gained from our experiences, trying to be better today than we were yesterday, trying to love more openly and forgive more quickly, and hold on less tightly to the illusions of control we thought we needed. That's what I've been trying to do every day since that moment in the hospital room when my world turned upside down. Emma is thriving now in ways I could never have imagined. She's excelling in her career, making a real difference in the world through her work on urban sustainability projects. She has deep, meaningful relationships with both of her mothers, drawing strength and wisdom from both of us in different ways. She has a partner who loves her fiercely and supports her dreams. She has half-siblings who adore her and look up to her. She has parents who made mistakes, but who have worked hard to make things right. She knows who she is now, both Emma and Rebecca, both our daughter and Diana's daughter, both the person she was raised to be and the person she was born to be. And me? I'm learning to be comfortable with complexity, with the fact that life rarely gives us simple answers or neat resolutions. I'm learning to trust more and control less, to embrace the beautiful messiness of real relationships instead of trying to maintain some perfect image of what a family should look like. I'm learning that love is not a finite resource that gets divided when more people enter your life, but an infinite well that grows deeper the more you draw from it. My relationship with Diana has taught me this more than anything else. I thought that Emma loving her birth mother would mean Emma loving me less, but that's not how love works at all. Emma's heart just got bigger to hold both of us, and in the process, my heart got bigger too. I found room not just for Diana, but for her other children, for the extended family and friends who have become part of our lives, for all the people who love Emma and want good things for her. There are still difficult moments, times when old insecurities flare up or when the complexity of our blended family creates tension or misunderstanding. But we've learned how to navigate those moments together, with honesty and grace, and a commitment to working through problems instead of avoiding them. We've learned that it's okay to have hard conversations, that it's okay to admit when you're struggling, that it's okay to ask for help or reassurance when you need it. Last month, Emma asked Mark and me if Diana could be listed as her emergency contact along with us. My first instinct was a flash of jealousy, that old fear that I was being replaced, but I pushed it down and really thought about what she was asking. She wanted all of her parents to be there for her in a crisis, to have all the people who loved her be able to act on her behalf if something happened. It made perfect sense, and it was actually beautiful that she felt secure enough in our love to ask for that without fear of hurting us. Of course, I told her. Diana should absolutely be listed. She's your mother too, and she deserves to be there for you in every way that matters. The smile Emma gave me in that moment, the relief and gratitude and love in her eyes, told me I had said exactly the right thing. And the truth is, it didn't even hurt to say it. I meant it completely. I think that's when I knew I had really healed from everything we had been through. When I could say those words, Diana is your mother too, without any pain or resentment or fear. When I could celebrate Emma's relationship with Diana instead of feeling threatened by it. When I could see our blended, complicated family not as a compromise or a consolation, but as a gift that had made all of our lives richer and more meaningful. So if you're listening to this story and you're going through something difficult in your own family, if you're dealing with secrets or lies or complicated relationships that don't fit into neat categories, I want you to know that there is hope on the other side. It might not look like what you expected. It might be messier and more complicated and require more honesty and vulnerability than you thought you had in you. But it can also be beautiful and profound and deeply, authentically loving in ways that perfect never could be. Thank you for listening to my story, for staying with me through all the twists and turns, through the pain and the healing, and the unexpected moments of grace. If you haven't already subscribed to this channel, please do it now. We've built this community together, and I want you to be part of it as we continue to share real stories about real people navigating the complicated terrain of love and family and forgiveness. Click that subscribe button, and let's keep this journey going together. The last thing I want to tell you is about something that happened just last week. Emma called me on a Tuesday afternoon, her voice excited and a little bit nervous, and asked if Mark and I could come over to her apartment that evening. She had something important to tell us, she said, and she wanted Diana to be there too. My mind immediately jumped to worst-case scenarios, the way mothers' minds tend to do, but I pushed those thoughts away and agreed to be there. When we arrived at Emma's apartment, Diana was already there, sitting on the couch with a cup of tea. Mark and I sat in the chairs across from them, and Emma stood in front of us, her hands twisting together nervously. "I have some news," she said. And then she smiled, and I knew before she said another word that it was good news. "Sam proposed last night, and I said yes. We're getting engaged." The room erupted in hugs and tears and excited questions about when it happened and whether she was surprised and could we see the ring. Emma showed us the beautiful sapphire ring on her finger, explaining that Sam had proposed during a hike up to Multnomah Falls, the place where they had their first date. It was romantic and perfect, and Emma was glowing with happiness. As we celebrated together, the four of us who made up Emma's parental team, I felt overwhelmed with gratitude for this moment and all the moments that had led us here. 2 years ago, I could never have imagined sitting in my daughter's apartment celebrating her engagement alongside her birth mother, feeling nothing but joy and love and excitement for her future. 2 years ago, I was consumed by fear and jealousy and the need to control everything. But somewhere along the way, I had learned to let go, to trust, to embrace the complexity and beauty of the family we had created together. Emma is already planning the wedding, talking about having both Diana and me walk her down the aisle, about having Diana's other children in the wedding party, about creating a ceremony that honors all the different kinds of love that have shaped her life. And I'm excited for all of it. Excited to stand beside Diana as we both give our daughter away to the person she's chosen to build her life with. Excited to celebrate this new chapter in our family's story. So that's where my story ends, or at least where it is right now. Stories about families never really end. They just keep unfolding, chapter after chapter, bringing new challenges and new joys and new opportunities to choose love over fear. I don't know what the future holds for any of us, but I do know that whatever comes, we'll face it together. This imperfect, blended, beautifully complicated family that we've built from honesty and forgiveness and the determination to keep showing up for each other no matter what. Thank you for being here with me, for listening to my story, for being part of this community we're building together. If you've made it this far, you understand what I was trying to say about family and love and truth. Now please, one more time, subscribe to this channel. Hit that red button and help us reach our goal of 1,000 subscribers. Your support makes all the difference, and I can't wait to share more stories with you. Thank you, from the bottom of my heart, for listening and for being here. This is Sarah, signing off, reminding you that sometimes the worst moments of our lives lead us to the best versions of ourselves if we're brave enough to face the truth and do the hard work of healing.